it. Whenever anything happens in the Massachusetts cannabis scene, I go to the number one source. He is Chris Faraone. He publishes the Talking Joints memo every week. It's must reading if you are in the Bay State. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on short notice. I really do appreciate that.
My pleasure. Lots going on. We have to work through the weekends these days. There's that much going on.
Is there a weekend? I don't remember when the weekends, just be honest with you. Okay. So big news in Massachusetts this week that the two political figures that have been, I don't want to say dominating the headlines, but it's been a nice sideshow, if you will, with Shannon O'Brien, who was the commissioner, resigned, got fired, went to court, and now she's been vindicated in court. What's your reaction? How much of a big factor is this on the industry, these two women going at it?
Well, first, I just want to clarify that she didn't resign. She got suspended first. So,
So
and I think you put it well that it's kind of a side story, but it does encompass so many of these other stories. It's hard enough for me to write a cover when even though I'm writing just tons of coverage and I don't have to always lump everything in. This is why it gets a little dicey when the major media organizations do. They start to dip their toe in and then everything's related. So I would say it's very consequential. And of course, we're talking about Treasurer Deb Goldberg and I don't know what we're calling her, former CCC chair, current CCC chair, Shannon O'Brien. So, of course, this settlement comes after 2 years. I call it a September story. September 2023, September 2023, O'Brien's appointed. September 2020, or no, go back. 2022, she's appointed. September 2023, she is suspended. September 2024, full year later, officially fired. And here we are a year later, and the judge finally comes out with a decision. Now, the decision, to be clear, doesn't say that Shannon O'Brien didn't do all of most of the things she was accused of. These little kind of, not racial epithets, but passive aggressive stuff, or however you want to characterize them. But they don't. What the judge is basically saying is they don't constitute gross misconduct, right? So my reaction is it kind of makes sense. But one of the other things going on here that people really have to understand is that it's not on paper because she wasn't fired for trying to help some licensees, but what the infighting was allegedly about is that she wanted to do things at the commission that other people there didn't want done. Now, I have to stress that there are many sides to this story. It's not just O'Brien versus Goldberg. There are all these other players. There's former executive director Sean Collins, who hasn't said much. And there's also Cedric Sinclair, who had, I think, a few different roles there. And even though he was on the other side of this situation, and from what I understand, really, did not get along with O'Brien, I believe people check out Worcester Business Journal. They had an article. Sinclair, you could say, was also vindicated recently by a decision to get some of his back pay. So everyone's right, everyone's wrong. And as I said in a live stream myself recently, is this good or bad? Depends on who you are. You're a reporter like me. There's always stuff going on to cover. I guess it's good. Then again, I don't like to see the industry suffer at all. Some people would argue that the Cannabis Control Commission has been sidetracked by a lot of this. They've met in tons of executive sessions, it's lawyers, it's costing money. At the same time, the CCC manages to get some stuff done. It hasn't stopped everything in its tracks.
And the bottom line here is there was no just cause, at least this is the legalese of it, to fire her. The accusations, again, were me against you, your word against my word, and it's difficult to prove who's right and who's wrong when it's opinions and observations and interpretations of office politics.
And here I have the whole thing right here, and been redlining it. It's 50 pages, the settlement, and honestly, it's a lot of stuff we know, especially since there were 3,000 pages, I think, last time we spoke, released related to this case. But when you go through it, it's just ugly. Honestly, it's not a place I would want to work. The Cannabis Control Commission. That's really the ultimate takeaway here. They have so much to do now. There's going to be social consumption, and it's really kind of sad. The other thing we've learned, if people want to get a little boring and technical about it, is ever since this happened, they have kind of clarified the role of the executive director, who is a hired position, versus the appointed commissioners. A lot of that wasn't clarified. And some things that even were said at meetings when O'Brien was there was like, who's in charge here? Things to that degree. And that all comes up in this. So I think that it's ultimately going to be positive. With that said, in the interim, who the heck knows? I mean, we have Bruce Stebbins, who's commissioner, competent, acting chair, was just reappointed as acting chair until this is solved. It looked like it was resolved for about 10 seconds. But if you went to the court record, even as this decision came down last week, I believe it was last Monday or Tuesday, um, the treasurer's attorney, who, by the way, I think state, taxpayers need to know, the treasurer is represented, of course, by the attorney general of Massachusetts. This is a taxpayer funded operation, much like the Karen Reed trial, not to compare O'Brien with Reed, but this is just, it's one of these things where I think personally it's enough already. But basically O'Brien was ordered back to work. And it seems that we didn't know, does she want that job back? It seems she does. Her lawyers put out a statement saying, hey, Shannon O'Brien was trying to get back to work. The chair was trying to get back to work, had meetings set up for this coming week, and now that's on the back burner. So appeals, they could go fast, they could take a while. Well, I think this one at least takes a week or two. So, but yeah, this is a total. Thankfully, it is kind of a sideshow. I think people listen. If you have a business, you got to operate, right? You can read about it, you can worry about it. But just to end it with, I'll say that there are all these tangential issues, testing being the number one thing, lab testing and lab fraud in particular, that a lot of stakeholders say, hey, they tried to bring these issues to Shannon O'Brien. Others there at the commission didn't want to deal with it. And whether that's, confirmed or not is questionable. Although, that seems to certainly kind of be the case. And so that's where we are now. But a lot of those issues are being dealt with, maybe slowly. It is bureaucracy after all. But I can't stress enough. I've never seen a bureaucracy with this many eyeballs on it to begin with. But now look at it. Now it kind of warrants that many eyeballs. So
is it an embarrassment to the industry?
I mean, I wouldn't say to the industry, just to the state. I mean, I think, and then there's a potential rewrite of the law, which I hope won't pass right now. That would put really kind of even change the Cannabis Control Commission's makeup again. I don't think to a really positive degree. It would put more power in the hands of politicians. And every time the CCC messes up here, the politicians on Beacon Hill, for those who aren't in Mass, that's where our capital is, in Boston, Beacon Hill. CCC is about 40 minutes west in Worcester, the second biggest city in New England. And every time Worcester messes up, Beacon Hill, says, oh, we need to take over this and that. And I think anybody who, follows this stuff knows Beacon Hill doesn't exactly have its act together, right? So it's Massachusetts politics. So I think that's always kind of funny. People like to pick sides. It's kind of like, if you have divorced parents who are always fighting, you pick this one who buys you this thing and that one. I didn't do that, but
right. No, of course
that's what I've heard. Anyway, but that's where we are. And unfortunately, it's not ideal for the industry, but it's what's happening.
That's right. Hey, Christopher Faraone, you are awesome covering the industry. I respect your opinions. Keep up the good work with the Boston Independent Nonprofit Journalism Group that you are the force behind. And we'll have more of the Cannabis Coast to Coast News special report after this.
I think I messed up. Did you know there's a place that covers all the cannabis news you need? Pro Cannabis Media is now WPCM TV, your go-to website for things cannabis. WPCM TV is the CNBC of weed, bringing you the latest news you need.
Amy Carter. This week, she reports from inside the State House in Lansing.
I'm Amy Carter from Michigan Weedsters with this week's Michigan Report for Cannabis, Coast to Coast News.
And talk shows about all things cannabis.
Well, thank you, and thank you for all you're doing to get the word out. Like, this show is so important.
It all started back in 2018, when Emmy award-winning talk show host Jimmy Young kicked it off with the In the Weeds podcast.
That it's not just any generic paper towel. You do have a brand that you use, right?
Yeah, we live or die by the bounty. I mean,
the quicker picker upper. I love that.
His mission? Building an army of multimedia journalists and podcast hosts who are documenting the fight to end cannabis prohibition in this country and around the world. Fast forward to today, and we've got the nation's only weekly cannabis coast-to-coast news program, with Elena Pinto.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Cannabis Coast to Coast News, WPCM TV's weekly production of the fight to end cannabis prohibition in this country and around the world. I'm Elena Pinto.
Delivering the nation's only TV news-style program. Since June 2021, WPCM TV has racked up over 1.3 million views, with 17 million impressions, and picked up over 16,000 subscribers on YouTube alone. For more information, contact the team at WPCMTV.com.